What do we learn about the crowning of Joash here in 2 Chronicles that we didn't learn from 2 Kings? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible. Today we're going to be discussing 2 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 1 to 11. But before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 23, verse 1. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Chronicles chapter 23, beginning at verse 1. In the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and made a covenant with the captains of hundreds, Azariah the son of Jehoram, Ishmael the son of Jehohanan, Azariah the son of Obed, Maaseiah the son of Adaiah, and Elishaphat the son of Zichri. And they went throughout Judah and gathered all the Levites from the cities of Judah and the chief fathers of Israel, and they came to Jerusalem. Then all the assembly made a covenant with the king in the house of God. And he said to them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as the Lord has said of the sons of David. This is what you shall do. 1/3 of you entering on the Sabbath, of the priests and the Levites, shall be keeping watch over the doors. 1/3 shall be at the king's house, and 1/3 at the gate of the foundation. All the people shall be in the courts of the house of the Lord. But let no one come into the house of the Lord except the priests and those of the Levites who serve. They may go in, for they are holy, but all the people shall keep the watch of the Lord. And the Levites shall surround the king on all sides, every man with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes into the house, let him be put to death. You are to be with the king when he comes in and when he goes out. So the Levites and all Judah did according to all that Jehoiada the priest commanded. And each man took his men who were to be on duty on the Sabbath, with those who were going off duty on the Sabbath, for Jehoiada the priest had not dismissed the divisions. And Jehoiada the priest gave to the captains of hundreds the spears and the large and small shields which had belonged to King David, that were in the temple of God. Then he set all the people, every man with his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar and by the temple, all around the king. And they brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, gave him the testimony, and made him king. Then Jehoiada and his sons anointed him and said, Long live the king! In our last lesson, we saw the ascension of Athaliah as queen of Judah following the death of her son Ahaziah at the sons of the Israelite king Jehu. Why did Athaliah ascend? Well, it was through treachery, of course, but treachery that was made possible due to a culling of the royal house of David. This culling began under King Jehoram, Athaliah's husband, who killed off all his brothers, as he likely saw them as a threat to the throne. These brothers might have been able to step in as king should no other heirs had been present after the death of Ahaziah. But no, they are all dead, making Athaliah's path easier. Then you had the children of Jehoram, who were all killed by the Philistines and Arabians when they came up against Judah, which we learned they did as punishment by God against Jehoram's sins. These brothers of Ahaziah could have stepped in as king should no other heirs have been present at the death of Ahaziah, but alas, with them dead too, Athaliah's path was even easier. And with Ahaziah being so young when he took the throne, 22 years old, it meant that he wouldn't have had a large amount of sons, making the royal line smaller still. Thus, the line of kings that would come through David and Solomon hit a bottleneck here, with very few being left. And with so few being left, all Athaliah had to do was kill off the remaining heirs, and she could seize the throne. And if it wasn't for the providence of God, she almost certainly would have fully succeeded. But Jehosheba, the wife of the high priest Jehoiada, and half-sister of Ahaziah, saved Joash, son of Ahaziah, who at that time was a baby, from execution, protecting him at the temple until such time that he was old enough to be crowned king. In the meantime, Judah would have to suffer through Athaliah's tyrannical rule as the only ruling queen in Judah's history. Athaliah was an idolater, just as bad as her father and her husband. She set up idols around Jerusalem and in Judah and did damage to the temple that would later have to be repaired by Joash. But her reign would be relatively short, for it did not last any longer than it had to, for after 6 years of her reign, Joash was now ready to become king. Now, normally you might think that a 7-year-old is not ready to be king, and I'm sure Joash would have had regents and advisors to help him, but that's how bad things were in Judah. Even a child would be better than Athaliah. The plan for crowning Joash king was a risky one, for it would not only require that Joash be revealed as alive, but his crowning would need to take place at the temple where he lived, which was situated right next to the palace. But as always, since this was the Lord's will providentially, he would provide assistance and the plan would work. What Jehoiada's plan was on the Sabbath day, when the guards would change. 1/3 of the new guards would keep watch over the king's house. 1/3 would be at the gate of Sur, one of the gates of Jerusalem, most likely near the palace, and 1/3 would be at the gate behind the escorts, which would be another gate near the palace. Those coming off duty that Sabbath were to keep watch at the temple for the king. When he came forth, they were to surround the king on all sides, every one with his weapons in his hands, weapons that belonged to David that were supplied by Jehoiada. Whoever came in range of them were to be put to death so that the king could be protected. There is something we learn here in 2 Chronicles 23, though, that was missing from 2 Kings 11, which is the parallel passage, and that is that the guards first went and collected the Levites from the cities in Judah, and they came to assist in this effort. Now, we don't know why the writer of 2 Kings left this detail out, but since it happened that the chronicler included it, shouldn't surprise us, as the chronicler often has been focused on the Levites and the temple worship. And that the Levites would have been involved shouldn't surprise us either, for the crowning of a king was not only a civil matter, but a theocratic matter as well, as the true king of Judah was the anointed of God, something that the high priest would proclaim. So it is not a contradiction between 2 Kings and 2 Chronicles concerning the Levites. It's just that the writer of 2 Kings chose to focus on the guards alone, while the chronicler chose to focus on the guards along with the contribution of the Levites. As for Jehoiada's plan, it worked perfectly. Joash came out into the court of the temple, where he was crowned king, and given the testimony, which is a copy of the book of the law. For recall from Deuteronomy 17, verse 18, that the king was to copy the book of the law for himself from the one given to him by the priests. Once Joash was anointed king, all the people present clapped and shouted, "Long live the king!" But there is one problem. Athaliah is not dead and probably won't take this sitting down. What would her reaction be? We'll find that out, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of 2 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 12 to 21, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.